You're listening to Ask Dr. Jake. My name is Dr. Jake Tucker, owner and founder here at Good Life Family Chiropractic. And we're coming to you today from the south side of Lincoln with another message of health, hope, and wholeness. And what I wanted to do today is just tell you a little bit about why my experience with chiropractic is so different than most people's. In fact, most people, when you think about it, they treat chiropractic as an alternative for neck pain, back pain, or headaches. And that's about it. And really, the research world and the scientific community dismiss us as one of those main treatments, although most of the research actually goes to support other things. And actually, that's been my experience in the office. I find that when patients come in for their neck pain, for their back pain, for their headaches, for their sciatica, for their migraines, they're oftentimes surprised when their blood pressure gets better, or their breathing issues start to go away, or their digestive system functions better, or they're sleeping better at night. And that actually is what I've experienced in chiropractic care. And it really comes down to my story. In fact, when I was in chiropractic school, my nephew was born, Elias. And he was a frontal breech baby. And my sister called me because they had a lot of difficulty in labor, and he had scored a 1 out of 10 on the APGAR score. He wasn't breathing. And I got over to the hospital. She explained what had happened. They had basically taken his head and neck in a pair of forceps and pulled and twisted. And so I had her take me into the NICU unit, where he was basically on just about every type of monitor you can imagine. But I was able to get to his spine. And what I found is that what the forceps had done is they had twisted his spine out of alignment at every single level. And what that had done is that it put pressure on his brainstem, right where the breathing center is, and right across his shoulders where the sympathetic nerves go out to his lungs. And it was creating an interference, keeping his brain from being able to communicate with his lungs and creating those breathing issues and keeping him scoring so low on that APGAR scale. And so I adjusted him. And now for most of you, that's a different adjustment than what you're used to seeing. Those of you who've never seen a baby be adjusted before, it's nothing like what you'd see on TV or on YouTube. It's like feeling for the ripeness of a tomato. And as I adjusted him, I prayed for him. And as I prayed for him and adjusted him, I felt his body relax in my hands. Now, nothing changed that evening that was measurable or that they told me about. But the next morning, my sister called me up and she said, "Jake, you'll never believe it, but we get to go home today. The doctors are saying it's a miracle that we're leaving the hospital at all. And I want to thank you for healing my son." And I wanted to, and as glad as I was that he was doing better, in no way can I take any credit for anyone's healing. My job as a chiropractor is not to heal you. My job is to remove the interference from the innate intelligence that God provided to each one of us inside of our central nervous system and allow our bodies to heal. And that's exactly what happened with him. And if that needs to happen for you this morning, pick up the phone. Text us or call us at 531-289-7100, and we'll be happy once we get your message to return your call or return your text message and set up a time to sit down and figure out what your miracle needs to be. And let me tell you, our culture right now, it needs a miracle, because right now we are the most expensive healthcare system in the world. We spend more money on healthcare than any other country. And when you look at it, it's not close. We spend $11,000 per person every single year. We spent 1/5 of our gross domestic product on healthcare costs last year. Bankruptcy, the number one cause of bankruptcy was healthcare costs last year. And guess what? That was almost 2/3 of all bankruptcies. And 85% of those people had health insurance of some form or another. And so this system, this problem is not going away. In fact, it's getting worse and worse. With the number one most expensive healthcare system, you'd expect us to perform pretty well, right? Well, look at these numbers. If you're following along on facebook.com/AskDrJake, you can see these numbers off to the side here. And this is the World Health Organization report. As the most expensive healthcare system in the world, with the best doctors, best facilities, best research, best implementation across the world, we scored 72nd overall when it came to healthcare. And when it came to our health, when you just compare industrialized nations, we were 37th out of 37, tied for dead last. And if we're going to get better at this, we have to start recognizing where the problem comes from. First, it comes from our stinking thinking. We wait until we're sick, where we actually have a disease process actively building in our body to the point where we feel it before we go and do anything about it. It's a very reactive system when we know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If we would just invest in this, 95%, this is the Journal of Pharmaceutical Research, 95% of cancers are preventable with lifestyle changes. But we have to start being proactive. Second thing that we need to know is we have to know what health is, right? You can't get to Miami by accident, especially if you jump on I-80 heading west. You can have the best of intentions. You may want to be healthy, but if you don't know what health is, then you're not going to get there, unfortunately. And this is a problem I see all too often. I'll ask somebody, how healthy, or how do you know that you're healthy? And they'll tell me, well, I think I'm healthy because I feel good. I look good. I feel good. I must be healthy, right? And that's absolutely untrue. In fact, we all know somebody who died of cancer or heart disease and looked good and felt good the day before. I mean, you look at an example from modern culture, pop culture. Lance Armstrong, he won multiple Tour de France, is one of the best athletes of all time, maybe with a little help from some illicit narcotics. But he actually, was diagnosed with testicular cancer multiple times in spite of all the working out and all the exercise he did and how good he looked and how good he felt. The same thing with Bob Harper. Some of you know him from The Biggest Loser, but he's a celebrity trainer. He was working out one day in the gym, just, I want to say 53 years old, and keeled over, woke up in the hospital. They told him, you just survived a massive heart attack. And this is all too often the case because number one and number two killers in the United States right now are cancer and heart disease. And it's not even close. Over 2/3 of all deaths will be related to cardiovascular disease or cancer next year and last year and the year before. And it just keeps on continuing. COVID's not even making a blip in this thing. There are tons of people that are dying with COVID from heart disease and cancer, and they were dying anyways. But it really comes down to what were they doing that got them there? Because cancer, if you wait till you feel it, you're 10 years too late. And heart disease, you've had cardiovascular disease in your system for 20 years before you feel the first symptom. 63% of the time, that symptom is going to be the heart attack. And even though we have the best emergency rooms in the world, I would not rather have a heart attack in any other country than the United States of America. God bless us. It's just a 50% survival rate. Waiting until you feel cardiovascular disease to stay heart healthy is setting yourself up for failure. Waiting for cancer to show itself via symptoms is setting yourself up for failure. But we know that. And so we have tests, right? We go and we get our PET scans, we get our mammograms, get our CT scans, we get our MRIs, we do our prostate checks, we do our breast self-exam, we do our colonoscopies. But even by our best tests, it still takes cancer growing 8 years inside your body before it's even detectable. That's 2 years before it's considered lethal. This is why we're losing the war on cancer. This is why you can die of cancer, and because you survived 5 years, they told you beat it. Just because you're cancer-free today does not mean that you beat it. You have to get healthy. You have to know what health is. So no definition of health in the world defines health as how you look or how you feel. In fact, the World Health Organization and Dorland's Medical Dictionary both define health as a state of 100% optimal function and healing. And I like to extend that across mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual components of your life. If you're optimally functioning and healing, then you are 100% healthy. But if you've lost any of that function, that starts to build up dysfunction leading to disease, and disease ultimately leading to an early death. And so we have to be more proactive with this thing, because guess what? If we wait till we feel it, you have to lose at least 40% function before you feel a symptom. Oftentimes that function will have been there, or that loss of function will have been there for over 20 years before you feel it. And so if we're going to be healthy, if we're going to change this trajectory as a church, as a culture, as a society, we have to start knowing where health is and where it comes from. It's not coming from our health insurance. It's not coming from our doctors, unfortunately. I can't get you there as a healthcare professional. You have to get you there. You have to be the one that takes responsibility, because even your health insurance, by definition, can't get you there. The definition of what's considered medically necessary states, and I quote, "Any care that seeks to prevent disease, promote or enhance the quality or longevity of life is not considered medically necessary and therefore will not be covered." So your health insurance, by definition, cannot and will not ever get you to 100%. They may get you feeling better. And some of you, that's the goal. You just need to start feeling a little bit better. But if all you do is start feeling better and the problem is building sickness and disease underneath, then I've failed you and we've failed you as a healthcare system. But what we've got right now, because we base our healthcare so much on how we feel, is not a healthcare system. We've got a disease management system. Heck, even the Centers for Disease Control, all they're looking to do is control disease. They're not looking to keep you healthy. You just look at this COVID crap that's been going on. And what we see is that after 6 months of dealing with COVID and knowing that a healthy immune system is the number one key to keeping people out of the hospitals and healthy and flattening the curve, it took them 6 months before they finally said something to the effect of actually keeping their immune system healthy. Everything else has not been about prevention. It's been about control. If you want to be healthy, you have to know where health comes from. And it starts with the central nervous system. Your nervous system controls or houses the innate intelligence that controls all function in every single part of your body. For your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe, for a cut on your leg to heal, a signal has to run from your brain down the brainstem, out the spinal cord to each of the nerve roots in every organ, cell, and tissue in your body. It doesn't happen any other way. And that central nervous system is perfectly protected by the spine. The spine has a normal position. It should be straight up and down from the front with 3 45-degree curves from the side. In that position, there can be no pressure damage to your central nervous system. The problem comes when you take that out of alignment. When that moves out of alignment, even 2 millimeters or 2 degrees, and is left there for 5 minutes or more, it decreases the amount of communication between the brain and those tissues, cells, or organs on the other end by as much as 60%. Remember, we're talking health is function. If your brain cannot communicate that function to the organs, you cannot be healthy. And so if you want to be healthy, you have to make sure that that spine's in the normal alignment. If it's out of alignment, then you're not healthy. You're dysfunctioning, and it's ultimately going to lead to sickness and disease and an early death. And so that's why I'm a chiropractor, not just because this saved my life, but because it saved so many of my family members' lives. If you tuned in last week, you heard my dad's story and how we were able to help him to reverse congestive heart failure. You heard my nephew Elias's story at the beginning of the show, but ultimately this comes down to, really just even me being here was because one of my mom's best friends told my mom about a chiropractor. See, I was a healthy baby coming out of the hospital, 2 days old. They sent me home with a clean bill of health. But at 2 weeks old, the day of my first well check, being deemed healthy once again, I quit breathing and turned blue for the first time. After 6 months of going to specialist after specialist and being given no hope and no answers, my mom finally went to the chiropractor that her best friend recommended. He found a problem in my brainstem, the top bone of my neck, Atlas, shoved over the side, wrapped around my brainstem, was choking off the vagus nerve when it went out to my lungs. I had one adjustment, and I've never had a breathing problem since. And if you need that kind of care, if you need that kind of transformation in your life, pick up the phone, text us, call us, 531-289-7100. I'll see you guys again tomorrow.